So what's kind of the plan with kickers right now moving forward? Charlie's got one more elevation left. Are you hoping to also see Cade York toward the end of the year, or is that kind of up in the air still?
I would say all that's up in the air. Our focus is on one game at a time, right? And what we're trying to do is go win this game right now. And so what our hopes is that Charlie goes and kicks well and, does a good job and helps us win the game. But we're kind of, at least I am, looking to go one game at a time. That's what our focus is. I think that's the only way you can treat it. That's not fair to other players if you're trying to have a plan of looking to see guys. We want to go win every game. That's what our goal is.
And then last week, of course, a miss was going to happen at some point in his career. It happened last week. How did you see him respond?
Look, I thought it was good. As he missed it, and then he came off the sideline, I grabbed him and said, hey, you got your first miss in the NFL out of the way. So how are you going to respond to it? And all you could do is every opportunity you give him, go make the next one. And he came and he responded and did a good job. And as you know, all those points are very important for us.
When the field was as beat up as it was during that game, how does that, that's got to affect the kicking game to some extent. How does that affect it?
Yeah, you could say it does, but we have to go kicking it when you have the opportunities, to go make the kicks, and it was the same for them as well. And so I think it's just a great opportunity against some adversity to go and be able to get it done.
Who were, just what was kind of your breakdown of the opening return from Tip?
Yeah, look, I was really proud. What we had talked about was starting fast, and there's been a couple games now we were able to start fast on the kick return team there, and we kind of had a plan going in, and it's really cool when you go and you have a plan, you see exactly how it should play out, and the guys execute their job exactly like you practice it all week, and you have some success and you get some momentum going. And so I thought that, not only did Tip do a great job of setting it up and then seeing the hole where he was winding back to, but the guys understanding in the front line of their leverage of where we were trying to get the ball to go to and influence the defenders to go that way. And then we've constantly been talking about strain. And yeah, KOR frontline blocking is not easy to do, and so you have to strain, and it plays longer than your mind's telling you that it is, and we've been trying to emphasize that, and those guys did. They really strained, and it was really a neat thing to see. And kind of, I thought we had a chance at the second one, and we just slipped and missed the block, and that's the fine line of having a big play or just an average play. But, I was really, really proud and pleased that those guys, they've been working at it, and it's really good for it to pay off for them.
What was it about Tampa's coverage plan that y'all maybe isolated or attacked in that opening kickoff?
I just think that, it's kind of like I think I've talked about before. Our job as coaches is to go and try to evaluate and see where do we think that we have an advantage in every phase, and I'll just talk just for special teams. And then our job is to put our guys in matchups that we think are favorable for us, trying to just get the right people blocking their people, meaning let's not get one of our safeties on one of their defensive ends. And so, like, our guys are tuned into that, and they may have to switch some spots as they line up so that we can get the matchups, that we're looking for. And but I just think it was something that, we saw on film. We thought we could use our leverage to our advantage, get them to go one way and then wind it back, and the guys executed. It was really cool.
I have a punting question that's not necessarily specific to Kai in this last game, but it's like I've always wondered on those 50 and in punts. Mm-hmm. Why do teams in general try for the pitching wedge shot that stops at the 3 instead of kicking it out of bounds? Is it harder to kick it out of bounds around the 5 than I think, or does analytics say if you can get someone inside the 5, it really pays off?
Yeah, I think it's harder than you think it is to be able to kick the ball out of bounds with the angle and still trying to stay in the midline of where the snapper is and not coming off of that so far and putting yourself at a chance of getting the punt blocked, right? And so I think why the teams hit the flip-flop ball, the punters are able to control it better. And they're able to locate it and take a little bit of distance off. And, what our goal is, we're trying to play catch with the returner, as we tell our punter. And if we can get them to fair catch it at the 8-yard line, that's great, right? And if it goes, just like the returner's taught, if it's going over their head, if we can get enough hang time or enough width on the kick, then it gives our gunner a chance to be able to down the ball if the returner doesn't catch it, And I think in our game, that situation was a little bit different. There's under 2 minutes to go in the game. We're winning, and we're at the 50 right there. And so I knew they were going to rush. I didn't know what rush it was going to be, and they wound up bringing the corner down. And in that specific situation, our deal was, look, we're going to one-step this and make sure that we don't get the punt blocked. And with the conditions, he was faster and felt better of just being able to catch it and one step and punt it instead of catch it, try to flip it with a wet ball and hit that. So obviously, would we have liked to, maybe have a couple yards off of it? Yes, but in that situation, I think the winning football is make sure we don't get a punt blocked here and, execute our technique. And the guys really did a good job. They brought the corner, and our protection, was able to taste them, slowed it down. We were able to communicate it, point out who the new guys had. They had to block. So it was a good job, something we practice every week.
Is that the term you guys use, flip-flop ball?
Yeah, we refer to it as going in when, is a going in punt. And so, but I would say, yeah, like when I'm talking to the guys about the opponent punters, hey, they're hitting a traditional, they're hitting a flip-flop ball.
Mason said earlier in the week that he'd never returned kicks before doing it here. Well, what did you guys see in him that's allowed him to kind of pick that up so quickly?
Yeah, listen, it actually is very surprising, right? When you look at the things he does well as a receiver, that he never really returned kicks at Yale, and kicks or punts. But since day one when he got here, understanding that a smaller slot receiver has to have some sort of impact on special teams, and his route was going to be us trying to develop him into punt returner and a kick returner. And it's a lot easier to catch kick returns than it is the punt returns, and he still works every week with us, getting catches as a punt returner. But it started with him on the look team when we were on kickoff, and we had him back there on the show team because a lot of development goes on with the look team. I try to put those guys in positions that if they're going to play for us, they're going to kind of be in similar spots. So he was back there as a kick returner and had done a good job, had really worked and studied, and we kind of put together a couple cut-ups of some returners, of similar returns that we're doing, of how they set it up. And he's been studying. It's really become very important to him. And so that's another neat little story that, like, he's worked so hard at becoming better, and not the actual catching of the kick return, but of actually setting up the blockers, being able to feel the hole and then wind it back or keep it front side where he needs to. He's really worked on it from a practice standpoint, from a film study standpoint, and he's doing a good job. I'm proud of him.
I think there was one return in the game that I can't recall who it was, but he wasn't back there. Was that kind of just like a hands return situation?
Are you talking about for us?
Yes.
No, we had Hull back there, Evan Hull back there. We had him back there a couple times. That's something that he has a history of doing in college. He did it his senior year at Northwestern. And then, sometimes when you look at the kickoff team, what their matchups are, if you can have an idea of, where they're going to kick the ball to, and, certain teams may play with a bigger linebacker that's out there. So you're trying to get a matchup as the off returner on a blocking guy. And so getting him a running back on a linebacker that's out there is a lot better than having one of our receivers have to try to go block that guy. All set? Thanks, guys.
Brandon, we've heard a lot of players kind of echo silent tape of late. I'm wondering what you make of that, and what does it do for a team when you have leaders like DeMar and can't kind of echo your message that you use that phrase a lot?
Yeah, as a coach, so much of your success depends on the people that you're with, and I think it starts with the leadership of whoever you're with. And so when you talk about Cam and DeMario, I mean, you're not going to team up with two better guys to set the example. And there were so many examples in the Tampa game alone that show you just their level of leadership. And a lot of it has to do with their performance, but a lot of it has to do with the investment in, our way of doing things. These guys have done it, a bunch of different ways, for so long, but to be so invested in our way, it's very special. And, I'm obviously extremely grateful. Kellen, all of us coaches are, because when your best players put it on tape, it makes your job a lot more fun to do, but also more rewarding. And so, when you're trying to build a program, you want to do it with your best players at the top.
Kind of a random question. I've never heard it called silent tape before until you said it. Like, where did you pick that phrase up from?
I actually picked it up from Kyle Shanahan, and that's kind of it's a phrase that he uses often, but really, for me and bringing it here to us is just we want to be focused on what's happening on the field, and I think nowadays there's so many things off the field that can divert your attention, but the pride in what we put on our tape, not just on the game tape, but our practice tape, going all the way back, from the springtime, and that every chance that we get to put our style of play on tape, we want to make sure that we take advantage of it, and we want that to drive our culture more than anything else. And our guys have done an awesome job with that.
How much more of a factor is that now with just silence on the outside? Because the guys coming up now literally grew up with a phone in their hand.
Yeah.
How much has that changed over just even the last decade?
I think what's tough now is that everything's got a vibe. Everything is shorter window, and then there's music to everything, and there's always something to kind of get you moving, going, feeling something. And what we want is, I think it's easier to feel something when you have some of those outside ways of doing it. It's certainly social media and other ways. There's just all that stuff that's available now that was not available when I was a young kid, for sure. And so I think nowadays you kind of got to go the other direction with these guys. Is you got to calm it down, quiet it down. And can you feel something when you don't have the music going, when it's not a short video, when it's just our film? Do you still feel that way? And that's what we want is we want our silent tape to affect the people watching it, and mainly is they play the right way, and it's obvious. And so we're trying to get that across.
It felt like there was a little bit more man coverage from your defense against Tampa. What if that is true? What was it about either the down and distance situations of Tampa or maybe Tampa's game plan that kind of brought that?
Yeah, I think the field had a lot to do with it. It's a lot easier to just play man-to-man and know exactly who you have as opposed to maybe reading something out in a pattern match coverage, because then the footing could become a factor. So we were trying to get our guys connected. And once I started to feel the game, that our guys were connected, that we were challenging, but still giving the body presence that, we kind of believe in, I felt like it was a good change of pace in that game. And then our guys, once they got in rhythm, it just seemed like the direction to go in the game.
It sounds like there's a lot of buy-in, especially this late in the season. When you're trying to install a philosophy and install a scheme and everything like that, and you're not getting the results early, and the team's 1-8, and 2-10, have you learned over time to be don't try to just put a quick Band-Aid on it. We're installing something for the long term, and it's going to play out in month 3, month 4. I mean, is that something you've had to wrestle with, or?
Yeah, I think you're always challenged to keep your message fresh, but also truthful. And I think what we were able to do on defense was be able to say, hey, our record is this, but this is where our defense is ranked, in terms of how we've played against some of the premium people. This is where our improvement has been from game 1 to, let's say, last week, and just showing them, hey, here are the facts about how we're playing, and here's where we can go. Here's the opportunities that are in front of us. And so I think the more experience I get, you got to make it about these guys and their goals, whether it's our unit goals or their individual goals. And I think that hopefully what we've been able to show during the season is that each individual has improved and has made real progress. Sure that there weren't a lot of steps backward, if that makes sense. It's like making sure that we're making the progress and they're seeing it pretty fast. And so, especially with the scheme change like there was here, I know that we were really conscious of that. We wanted these guys to play well right away, to feel it right away, and then hopefully that would lead to, even more progress as we went. So, these guys have been fantastic. You guys are around them every day. We were very fortunate with this group, and Mickey and Jeff and Kai and Randy, Mike Parents and this group of guys, Kellen, they're wired the right way. And when you got a group that's wired the right way, you will see the improvement. And, I love coaching this group.
I know one obvious point where that happened, just from talking to guys after this last Tampa game, was the first Tampa game and those goal line stands, even though they didn't win that game.
Yeah.
Are there any others that may have happened during the losses that were a big turning point for the defense?
Yeah, I think, the way that we defended some of the quarterbacks in this league that are MVP candidates, and I think the way that we played some of them and, some of the runners or some of the wideouts, I think the way that we played in some adverse situations, like even like in Chicago, that wasn't a game that went great for us. But man, the way that we hung in there and gave ourselves a chance to compete in that game. And obviously they're having a special year. So I think that they've been able to see that and feel it based on how other people are playing. Even going back to, I think, the first preseason game when we played Denver, we felt like they were going to be a team that was going to be there at the end. And, our starters played, so did theirs. And hey, we felt the quality that day, against those guys. And so I think that little examples like that of like, hey guys, we have what it takes. Now we just got to keep pouring into our culture here, pouring into, this thing, and you'll see, where we can take it. And so that's what we've tried to do, and this group of guys has just really brought it to life, and I thought the Tampa game was a real good illustration of that.
What do you think it's been in those short yardage situations, and it's been happening all year? I think the Bills game, there was a 4th and 1 stop, maybe the game Dolphins. And then in this game, what is it about those situations? Is it almost like a mentality thing more than a scheme thing at a certain point?
Definitely a mentality. We try to pride ourselves in don't skip any steps in the plan. We cover short yardage goal line just like we do 1st and 10 up the field, just like we do 3rd down or the red area. Like we pour into that space, and we're just as detailed in short yardage goal line as we are anything else. And, the one thing that I challenge the guys with is, guys, anytime you're in one of those situations, something's at stake. Right? Whether it's a 1st down, whether it's a turnover on downs that leads to big field position or momentum, or if it's just points down in the, obviously in there tight like it's been a couple times. So when there's something at stake and your back's against the wall like that, I think you really reveal who you are, and I feel like you got to challenge people that way. And I think our guys are they're up for it. They've done it all year. And again, the only way you're going to be good in those situations is if you have guys who are wired the right way, who have the appetite for that type of challenge. And I think our guys have stood tall all season.
Taylor has been very good against the Panthers in his career. As a coach, does that happen frequently, where you recognize a player is really good against this certain team? What do you kind of make of?
Yeah, I think there's some intangibles with that, where sometimes you've just played well against the team and you just feel the right way. You're one game away from feeling humbled in this league. I know that as well, all of us. So you just got to take that for what it's worth. But Alante, I think when he has played at his best, this year for us, and then in the past is when he keeps it simple, when he plays his game, stays within himself, because then the quality really shows up to everybody. And that last game, he had those two huge plays in that game that really helped us win that game, and he was also a part of a big 3rd and 1 stop in that game too. On their runner, who's a hell of a player.
Is there maybe a motivating factor, or even maybe like kind of a chip on the shoulder of a defense or an offense on the other side goes 4th down 7 times against you?
I think that's possible. I think you'd have to ask the guys, but I think particularly in that game, we just knew that it was a what it takes game, whatever it was going to take to win. And I think with the elements certainly playing a factor, we knew that every stop was going to be critical, and every chance we got to affect the game was going to help us win. And I think our guys did get more confidence, based on what's happened before in the season. I feel like they felt comfortable in that space. And then, you just had some great individual performances too, which is what you need in those situations. You need guys to make plays. You guys have heard me say that. You got to have players make plays in those situations. And I think if you trace all 7 of those downs, because the 2 that we lost were really close losses, or else it could have been a masterpiece. But that's why you got to keep pushing, because you're never there. But our guys executed the plan, and then they just made the plays, and you saw what it did for our offense. It really gives a boost to the whole team. And again, our guys are awesome.
Is it startling to see the way that the league has changed with a team does go for it 7 times, even your first year with the Chargers, and I remember.
Yeah, it's just it puts a lot of pressure on you. That style of playing, it's a good way of playing, and I can tell you from defending, it's not easy to win those downs, 4th and less than 1. So, and when you win those downs, it's offensively, it gives you a huge advantage from a time of possession, from a scoring perspective. So, and not to mention the way you call the game, it's different. So it puts a lot of pressure on you when you go for it on 4th down, or there's that appetite to do it. So, again, our team is well aware of that. I think that's a big part of just playing team defenses, knowing how a team's trying to play. It was obvious to us that Tampa was going to be aggressive in the game, and and we were going to need every stop to get it done.
It seems like there's a lot of clarity in how you articulate ideas, your process, how you do things. Do you study that about yourself, or is that just kind of natural to how you communicate, or was there something that you figured out about how to do that to make sure information's passed very digestibly?
I'm a son of a 6th grade English teacher and a high school coach. My parents are really my coaching tree. They really taught me, at an early age, how to communicate and how to pour into people, and to be able to do that, you have to have clarity in what you're doing, and you also have to have connection in what you're doing in order to get what you're trying to get across. And then you got to be really sharp, especially in pro football, for these guys to command their attention, and it's a real responsibility to get these guys ready to play in an NFL game, because there's so much that goes into it. So I take it really seriously. We take it really seriously as a staff, and these players that we've been able to coach here just can't say enough about it, because we've I think that the thing that I've been impressed with is just the improvement. And anytime we've had a setback or a tough stretch or something happened in a game, our guys have bounced back and they've been resilient, and that shows a group that's wired the right way.
One of the other things that a lot of players players, particularly in the secondary, have kind of echoed is the importance of fundamentals and technique over their natural, over relying on their natural athleticism. What do you share with them that instills that?
Man, a lot of love letters, which are basically like me sending them videos all throughout the day and night of just showing them why things are important, and not missing a chance to teach them why what we do or why we think the way that we play is going to help them, or why something that they've done. You know, maybe it's Kool-Aid from, training camp when we were really working on cushion race, and hey, here was an electric clip of you doing it. I know that this was 4 months ago, but hey, like, don't forget, like, all that work that we've put in. Okay, here was that perfect pace that you had. And I think, now we try to connect as much as we can to get them to focus on technique. That's what players really want, is help me know how to do this, instead of like what to do, tell me how to do it. And so we really try to focus on fundamentals. And in the secondary, to me, it is a very technique-oriented position, especially at corner. And so we try to pour into that. And again, that's part of playing the right way.
How many of those love letters would you say you send per day?
Man, it depends on the week. It depends on how much time. But, I think our coaching staff deserves so much credit here because they're all great teachers. And I think that that's something Kellen's done a good job of, that we've done a good job of, is put together a group full of guys that take pride in teaching and drawn from as many examples of our past or the present, to illustrate what we're doing and why we're doing it. So, our players, it's nothing without the players, because they're the ones that have to take the coaching points and put it on display. And, those guys in the secondary are improving. You guys have seen it with Kool-Aid and Quincy and Jonas, these young players. We're all work in progress. That's what I tell these guys. You never have it. And I think that they've really, taken on that spirit.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Appreciate it.
How we doing?
Good.
Good.
What has Devin Neal done really well in your eyes, especially since so much of his preseason got taken away from him? I know he started by earning the pass protection snaps, but what has he done to continue to increase his role?
I think Devin's got really good football instincts and a high football IQ. You know, it's one of the reasons I really liked him in the draft process, and I think that's shown up, you know. And he's just done a good job of getting better each and every week. Obviously, it wasn't the easiest evaluation coming out of training camp because we didn't have a lot to go off of. But each and every week, he's continued to improve.
What do you think went right in just getting off to a fast start against Tampa?
You know, I thought our guys did a really good job. They were ready to play, came out and they executed, and then they made plays.
What do you think of the year Juwan's having?
I think John's having a good year, you know. Obviously, you know, new system and moving into different roles as we use the tight ends differently. You know, maybe in some we don't just use a traditional Y all the time. And, you know, we play the YF role with him. He plays in different spots and all those things. But I think, you know, you continue to see his athleticism show up. And, you know, you look back to our game against them last time, made a couple big plays against them. So, you know, obviously I think it's a really good year.
Is that athleticism kind of what you want out of that position?
Yes.
And this is like way off topic, but what do you remember about, you were in Washington when Kellen was in Boise, right, like coaching?
Yes, I think my last game at Fresno, I was coaching at Fresno. We played Kellen in Boise. I believe that was his freshman year, I think, yeah.
And so what do you just remember about his kind of like Heisman campaigns?
Oh, you know, the biggest thing I remember about Kellen was the guy just always won. You know, the guy always won, and obviously, if you're an Idaho Vandal, you don't appreciate that much. So he did go to the other school in the state. There is only one real school in that state, the University of Idaho, at the Harvard of the West Coast, as some people refer to it.
There's a lot of Vandals on the staff.
Yeah, yeah. I know this. We never lost to Boise when I was there.
The QB keeper game, obviously, you know, worked last week. How important, just in terms of the run game, is just that threat? Like, just the defense being aware that if we're not, you know, honoring it, that he could take it.
Yeah, it's the +1 deal. You know what I mean? If the quarterback's not a running threat, obviously the defense can +1 you because the quarterback can't block for himself, so to say. So when you add that element to it and you force the defense to play you honestly, it helps even your numbers in the running game.
The middle of the field passing attack feels like it's been either a focus or just very effective over the course of the past few games. Just what does that add for you all over the defensive side, or excuse me, on the offensive side?
Well, I think, you know, when you look at hit charts and where the ball's going, you know, it's defensive, you know, coaches do. They look at ball distribution, who's getting the ball, where is the ball being distributed amongst the field. You know, and if all the balls are out here, it's not a good thing for you offensively because they basically say, okay, let's play out here and force everything in there and see if they can throw it in there. So anytime you can spread the ball out to different areas of the field, it forces the defense to defend all areas of the field, which is what you want.
And does the way that the college game is played make that a big coaching point for either passers or pass catchers coming into the NFL?
I don't know. The middle of the field's different in pro football because of the hash marks. Our game's played in the middle of the field, really, when you look at where our hashes are compared to college hash marks. So spacing, when you talk about, you know, the passing game itself and you look at college pass principles and you apply them to the NFL, sometimes they're so far different. It's like a play that looks good in college football, you're like, well, that's not going to be so good because they got so much extra space to the field, and they have sometimes, you know, play that doesn't work for them into the boundary may work more efficiently for us because we have a little more air into the boundary than they do.
Thank you.
Thank you.